How you doing today, Lindsey?
I am doing really well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm clearly in a change of venue here on a little trip, taking a Friday off on our way up to a wedding. So having a lot of fun with that. I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Or I should say outside of Pittsburgh, Cranberry Township.
Oh, how far is that outside?
It's like, I don't know, maybe a half an hour. That's probably wrong, but yeah, feels like something like
quizzing
that.
you. Traveling to Pittsburgh, but taking a Friday off, yet taking some time to come film and let everybody know about GA4. Thanks for doing it, because I know so many people are so confused about this transition from Google Analytics, or what they would say GUA and GA4, or UA and GA4. There's a lot of shorthand and people that will use and exchange different ones, but just like the transfer from responsive search ads and expanded text ads, I think Google's trying to give us as much time as possible to play around with GA4 and get used to it. So I'm really excited to jump in. I know a lot of people are so nervous about this that they haven't even looked at it yet. There are so many marketers I've talked to who have said, I've gotten the emails in my inbox. It feels like Google's really pushing me to really try this, but I'm really nervous. I haven't even looked at it because it feels like so overwhelming. So I'm hoping that we can give them just a little bit of respite and a little bit of encouragement to dive in and play around before Google completely takes away Universal Analytics.
Definitely. Yeah. And I would say it's, one, obviously everybody has a natural tendency not to jump in. And two, as we talk a little bit more about this, GA4 is definitely not the most user friendly, especially as you're converting over. It's very different than UA. So yeah, I would say it's definitely a normal response to be holding off on GA4, because even us, I feel like as we got into it, I've been trying to hold off as long as possible, but the time is now. We're definitely time to dig in.
Yeah. And maybe that's a really good point that people can put in their back pocket or make themselves feel better about jumping in, is that we're all new to this. There are some marketers who've been doing stuff for years and years and years with Google Analytics, but we're all new on this new GA4 landscape. So you can feel good that everybody's making mistakes. Everybody's trying it out. Everybody's confused and going through the forest together. So if there's ever a good time to start, it's now.
Yeah. So as we've already joked about having too many acronyms in here, let's give a little bit of context just to kind of hopefully make this a little bit simpler. So we're talking about Google Analytics. So this is, really what we think is probably the best tracking platform, the most basic tracking platform. It's free. It's one of the few, kind of solutions where you're going to get some good attribution data, see what people are doing on your website, understand where people came from before they did that action on your website. But not pay, $1 million for some of these kind of, third-party attribution resources and dashboards. So really good free tool, Google Analytics. If you're not familiar with it yet, you should get familiar with it. Definitely, this is where you should be tracking user behavior, purchases, what's happening on your site. Now, the older version of UA, or the current version of Google Analytics, is called Universal Analytics. That's what we have today, called UA. If you're familiar at all with Google Analytics, that's exactly what you're thinking about when you log in. You see a bunch of reports. You see all the different menu items. This is UA. Now, for a while, we've had GA4 out. Originally, it was in beta. I forget when it came out of beta, but it's a new version of Google Analytics, and it's actually quite different. There's a lot of differences to it. So if you go into it, you probably won't even recognize it. It's kind of a completely different interface. It kind of works completely differently than Universal Analytics worked. We're going to talk about some of those differences today. But ultimately, the big kind of contextual thing that we're talking about right now is Google just recently announced that they're going to be retiring Universal Analytics come July of 2023. So I think that's got a lot of people nervous, especially I think Google in their announcement email said, hey, really important that you make your upgrade now so that you have year over year data, which is true and important. You're still going to have access to the old data in Universal Analytics. So it might be a little bit more cumbersome to pull year over year data, but it's not like you're going to lose year over year data. But like we mentioned, GA4 tracks things a little bit differently. So if you really want good apples to apples comparison come July 2023, you really should get GA4 going today so that a year from now, you have that year's worth of data. So you can actually start to compare, how did my purchases look last July? How did how many users were visiting the website last July? All that type of thing. So that's kind of where we're at now, kind of the state of the union around Google Analytics and why everybody's thinking about upgrading to GA4 and how to use GA4 today. So yeah, let's get started talking a little bit. We've already kind of teed up that it's very different. There's a lot of things going on there. Let's talk a little bit about what some of those differences are.
Yeah, so maybe I can ask you first, what's one of the biggest differences in terms of events?
Yeah. So very technically speaking, the biggest difference is everything is event driven. So whereas in Google, in Universal Analytics, you had page views, you had different kind of, I guess I would call them like standardized events or very specific types of events that would be tracked in different ways. Now, or sessions would be one of those. Now in GA4, all of these are just an event. And there are standardized events, and some of them show up in the reporting differently. But one big difference is that everything is treated as kind of a first-class event. And then the data there can either be scoped to, hey, this is data about the event, that's the event scope, or hey, this is data about the user who executed the event, that's the user scope. So just a little bit different way of collecting the data, and that ends up making the reporting very different. So one of the things that we see when you first open up the interface, there's a lot less out of the box, I would say, in terms of, all of the nice reports. One of the biggest things I always use in Universal Analytics is the attribution report, looking at their default channel grouping. So basically, hey, let's look over the last month, the last 90 days, whatever it is. Here's all the users we've gotten on the site. Here's all the purchases, all the different data that we can get. And then let's break that down by where everybody came from. So, did they come from paid search? Did they come from organic search? Did they come from social? All those different types of things. And then let's see how we're performing across those channels and comparing them. That report, we can get to that report in GA4 by configuring it in particular ways, but you don't get it out of the box. So I think that's one of the big things from a user experience and user interface side that you'll find different, that you fire up the interface and it'll say, hey, you tracked all these events and you had, these users on your site. That's all I'm going to give you out of the box. Now here, go use our reporting interface and go ahead and, drag and drop the different components that you want and create the report that you want. So that's kind of one of the big differences I would call out that the users are going to notice.
Let me ask you, this might be putting you on the spot, so feel free to throw it back. But what do you think the difference is there in reporting between Universal Analytics and GA4, how it's such a stark difference, and they're really making you create from the ground up what matters to your business? What do you think the intention was behind that?
I think part of it is honestly like an agile rollout. So we saw GA4 come out in beta first. So I would anticipate that in the future that's going to exist. I was actually surprised. I think we were just talking about recently. I'm surprised there's not like a templating that, hey, I can create this very powerful, call it an e-commerce report or, very specific industry specific, niche specific report that matters a lot for the businesses we work with, and then template it. And eventually I'm surprised that they're not allowing companies to go ahead and do that and then sell those templates and say, hey, we'll give you a out of the box, package of reporting templates that you can just lay over GA4 that'll, slice and dice your data in a way that makes sense for your specific industry. That doesn't exist today. Like that capability to create templates and share them, from what I can tell, doesn't exist. So I think that's all coming, I would guess. But I think what we're seeing is just that they kind of rolled it out, and then as they're rolling it out, they're working on all the kind of back end piping to make sure that everything works, and we can submit these events in a very specific way and track events and add different attributes and dimensions to events and to users. But they haven't quite gotten to that final reporting screen where it's like, okay, now if we're not a in-depth user, how do we just fire up the interface and see some data that's important to us without having to learn about the entire system and how to create reports and slice and dice our own data?
Yeah, that's interesting because in some ways they're moving towards it being more user-friendly, but the way that they've rolled that out almost feels less user-friendly.
Yeah. Well, especially as they kind of told everybody all of a sudden, hey, next July is really important. So really this July is really important to get on to GA4. And it is ready, but in some respects, I would say, for all of our users, we're kind of saying best practice is to run both Universal Analytics and GA4 in parallel right now. So you're collecting all the data, and you can always go back and report on it in GA4 at a later date. But still today, if you're looking for good information, me personally, I'm still going to Universal Analytics because I just think that's the easiest place to find your data and to look at things. So I would say definitely get GA4 going right now because you want to collect that data, but still run it in parallel, and you'll probably still be using Universal Analytics for your backup. I feel like the communication coming from Google has probably indicated a little bit more that you were on GA4 now, so that should be your full time. That's what it is. So get in there, and I think that's given a lot of people anxiety because as they try it, they're jumping in and realizing it's not quite ready for that, at least from like a user experience and learning curve perspective. I don't think it's quite ready for the big time, but that's where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree. And from what I'm hearing from, other e-commerce shop owners and business owners, they're feeling much the same way, that this is going to take a little bit of time getting used to.
Definitely.
Let me ask you, for our Shopify users, what should they be thinking about?
So Shopify, it's actually a really interesting case. So if you've done, depending on how deep you've gotten into analytics and tracking with Shopify in the past, the nice thing with Universal Analytics is a lot of it comes out of the box. So basically in Shopify, in your interface, once you have a Universal Analytics property set up, you go ahead and take that property ID, drop it in a settings screen within Shopify, and then all of a sudden you have all your data is tracking properly to Google Analytics. We don't have that for GA4. So that's the first big thing. It's, we can drop in the code, drop it into your theme by basically copying and pasting the code in. We can set up Google Tag Manager and use Google Tag Manager to do a bunch of the tracking. And those are really your best bets. Or I should say that those would be the ways to kind of do it, manually right now. But there's not really a good out-of-the-box Shopify. And I'm surprised because Google's pushing so fast on this that Shopify hasn't kind of gotten on board and say, hey, let's the same way we've done with Universal Analytics, let's go ahead and create our GA4 integration. So your best bet right now is to go ahead and you can drop in pretty easily just the standard configuration tracking code. You can drop that in on your template page or on your in your Shopify templates. Or theme, sorry. So you go ahead and drop that in, and that will be tracking your page views. Then the other big thing you can do is go ahead and fire a conversion event, a purchase conversion event that fires on the purchase page. Now, to get more complex than this, so if you want that good, and you should want the good add to cart, view item, begin checkout, all those different types of actions, there's not a super simple out of the box way to track all those things. So it's going to be a little bit different theme to theme, depending on what actions you're taking. And the best way I would say is probably with Google Tag Manager, but that's definitely something you're going to need an expert to help you with. It's probably not out of the box. If I'm a Shopify owner who doesn't do a whole lot on the coding side, I'm not going to just necessarily be able to figure that out. There are some Shopify apps, as with anything, there's Shopify apps that'll do a lot of this stuff. We haven't really gotten into that, to be honest, yet, in terms of investigating those. That's probably going to be the long-term solution for if you want something that you can install yourself and have the tracking out of the box. That's probably the direction we'll go. But just as everything is kind of so young and still getting started, we haven't started evaluating those yet. So I would say that probably over the next couple months, that's what we'll be digging into, which Shopify apps work best for that. And obviously there'll be some pros and cons to all of them, but I would anticipate that that's the ultimate place we'll shake out.
That makes sense. I'm going to get a little shameless and pluggy here. So if you're an e-commerce business owner and this all sounds like way too much to consider, and where should they go for help, and what can we do to help them out?
Yes. So you answered part of your own question, is come to us because we can do something to help you out. But yeah, I think the answer is it's going to be a little bit different for every business. So it's going to be, depends on what data you really need to capture today, which data you can wait a little while on until different technology approaches. What do you need for your specific business? what level of technical capability do you want to do on your own versus, have us help with. So for all that, I would say that really fits into kind of what services we love to offer is that, hey, we're going to take some time to get to know you, to get to know what are your specific needs, and then craft a solution that kind of operates somewhere along that spectrum, whether it's manually just tracking purchases, manually tracking a bunch of different data and giving you customized reports so that you can really dig into GA4 today, or just, hey, let's find an app for you so that we can just track, the basic data, and then it's there and you can still use Universal Analytics, but then, a year from now, you've collected all that historic data in GA4 as well. So the solution is going to be really dependent on you as a company, but we can really help you get there and figure out what your needs are and draw a strategic roadmap for you.
Awesome. And if you need to figure out how to reach out to us, you could do it at ppcpitbulls.com.
Awesome. I love the plug.
Just had to throw it out there. And so I know we're throwing like a ton of information. People are already anticipating this is going to be an arduous climb up a hill towards the analytics land.
Yeah.
But yeah, reach out to us if you need any help. And I think, honestly, we gave some pretty good tips and tricks here. And if anything sounds way too foreign or way too much, there are a lot of people out there who can help with the transition. And Google's giving you a lot of time, just like they did with the different responsive and expanded text ads. They're giving you a lot of time to dig in. And so I think the big takeaway from this is sooner rather than later. Dig in now.
And yeah, I think we went probably pretty technical on this video, probably more technical than we need to, but there is a simple solution. There is, simple ways to just get the data that you need today so that you'll have it in the future. Try not to get too overwhelmed by this. You don't need to become a GA4 expert today. Let us or someone else help you just basically get the basic data collected, and then you can go back and use it in the future.
Exactly. Well, I think this is a perfect spot to transition into what's good.
What's good?
What's good?
Awesome.
Do you want to start?
Okay, I'll go first. Jinx. Yeah, so I think today I gotta say we're on a trip. We're here for a wedding. We've this is kind of our second big wedding coming out of the pandemic. So I guess more broadly speaking, good news is great to be around some people. Great to kind of get back to spending time with family and friends. Obviously, trying to do so in as safe a way as possible. On a more personal basis, I'll give a shout out to Scotty and Tina, and good luck to them and on their marriage and happy life ever after here. Can't wait to celebrate with them. So that's my what's good for this week.
Oh, that's exciting. That's a good one. Yeah. Congrats to Scotty and Tina.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go the nerdy route this time. I'm super, super excited for a brand new video game that I think launched last night technically, but it's going to be my weekend binge. It's called The Quarry, and it's on all kinds of consoles, but I'm maybe revealing myself to be super nerd here, but I'm a big game fan. So I was really excited for this one. It's like I don't know if you've heard of some of them, like from I think it's called the Dark Pictures Anthology. So it's a lot of like movie type scenes. And so it's not like a traditional video game where you're moving around quite a lot or you're shooting anything in particular. It's like you're interacting with a movie and with characters. So super fun. I'm really excited to just take a break and dive into something really fun and imaginative for the weekend.
Awesome. That's really cool. I feel like that'll be a lot of fun to immerse yourself in. I've never really gotten too much into the video game world, but I have a lot of friends and family that are enjoying it quite a bit.
I think this has been super fun. And you're right, a little technical, but where we needed to go. So people get excited, get on the GA4 train. Let's go.
Definitely. Let us help.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Talk soon.
All right. Take care.